Hey, somebody stole the horn from the whistle factory.
Howdy, and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Michael Winfield, and with me, as always, is Richard Manfredi.
Hello?
And Jeff Hopkins.
What's up?
Usually, Richard and myself spend our days locked in nonsensical combat as we try to determine the Mount Rushmores of life, the four things that best represent a certain topic. But now, the tables have turned. Usually Jeff is our judge, but we decided to give him a taste of his own medicine and make him a contestant against Richard in the subject of nonverbal sidekicks. Whose idea was this?
It was mine, but Richard's told me I'm his sidekick for this episode and therefore may not speak.
I think it's a pretty easy win for me, you guys.
Let's see. Richard's first, and then Jeff is... Okay, so Richard's second pick is... And Jeff, he's motioning to the door. Uh-oh.
I can honk a series of horns and knee cymbals and things.
2 words. First word. 2 syllables.
So Jeff, what was the impetus for coming up with this? What made you come up with the idea of, that this would be a good topic? Because I'm seriously doubting it right now.
I am fascinated with characters that support other characters and like sidekicks. And I'm kind of fascinated with, in the business of show, meaning movies and television, a lot of characters are tell characters where they, especially in TV, there's a lot of dialogue that drives everything. And I love these performers who take on these characters that can use their show skills, in show business, and emote and communicate without a bunch of dialogue. And I've always been drawn to those characters because they're often very loyal if they're a sidekick, and they're often very much used for comic relief or for moving plot along. So I always love them. So that's because I love them.
That's really insightful. So Jeff's characters are all going to make fart noises. Richard.
Yes.
Why don't you start us off?
All right, I'll start us off. And my first one is Gromit from the Wallace and Gromit
Oh, that's great.
That's a good one.
series of shorts and also movies and T-shirts and $30 toys and God knows what else.
That's Aardvark? What's the production?
Aardman. Yeah, it is. I think they've been doing these for about 20 years now. There's like a stretch where basically it would win the best short animation Oscar every year for like 5 years straight.
Yeah.
Mm.
But if you guys have not seen it, I'm sure you guys have. Wallace and Gromit is a British kind of, I guess, claymation. Is that what that's called?
Yeah.
Type animation. Very, very funny, very well done. Kind of one of those ones where they get that right balance between sort of it's great for the kids, but there's also enough stuff in there that the adults can feel comfortable kind of watching it. And so Gromit is the dog of Wallace, who is a kind of absent-minded inventor, kind of invents a lot of things that are needless, don't work well, and usually it's up to Gromit to save the day.
Yeah. Is this New Zealandish or is it English?
I believe it's English.
The British or like the British sensibility, I think, even extends towards Kiwis and Australians. I think
culturally, the tinkerer, the inventor, is someone in England who is a fun character. Think of Caractacus Potts from Chitty Chitty
Yeah,
Bang
we talked
Bang.
about that. Yeah, there's like a weird...
Yeah. I think the Fraggle Rock was one of those productions that was localized in different countries. And so in Russia, he's a chemist. And in England, he's a tinkerer, I believe. There's one place where he's a pharmacist or something. Maybe that's Russia. But in England, he's a tinkerer. And he has a dog, yeah.
In Japan, he sells used panties.
Yeah.
Those famous Russian scientists, I guess. That's strange.
I love that choice. I love Gromit's long-suffering.
Yeah, because he's usually he's the straight man or straight dog, I suppose.
A lot of eye rolls within that.
Yeah, I mean, that's
sides to the camera, just like, can't believe he's stuck in this mess.
Nick Park, the creator and animator, originally was going to have a voice for Gromit, then he realized it actually works better just having him communicate with like an eye roll or raising his eyebrow or something like that. He's a graduate of Dogwarts University. That came out later. And he's got, his favorite book is Engineering for Dogs. And he has like a whole library of like these great, classic books and everything like that. And I think it's just this great example of, like you said, Jeff, how the silence doesn't necessarily have to be a barrier from communication with the audience. It can actually, in a lot of ways, make it more of a connection, I suppose, because it transcends language.
Yeah, you can put yourself in their, at least physicality, and you can understand that in a way that maybe language, a weird voice would kind of throw you off. Or
Yeah, I mean, and plus, it's a cute dog.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like dogs?
Yeah. Well, I like dogs too, and my first choice was a dog, and that is Snoopy from the Charles Schulz animated comic strip and films, Peanuts. And as a kid, I called those shows Snoopy because he was so much my favorite character. So I didn't call him Charlie Brown or Peanuts. It was Snoopy because I thought he was the kind of runaway character in that.
I think too that with the Snoopy snow cone machine, which was like such a
incredible,
it's such a strange, like, iconic thing that either you had one or someone you knew had one.
Yeah,
and I can understand why Snoopy would be how you refer to it. What are you going to play? I'm going to go watch Snoopy because he was the animal dog.
I think, when I think of what sidekicks can do, sometimes spoiler, I've got some sidekicks who operate as the conscious of the primary character, and Snoopy was so liberated from his master. Snoopy would be flying in a biplane.
Was he the master?
Ultimately,
he kind of ran Charlie Brown's life. If you get down to it,
in that Peanuts was very ahead of its time because it had young children with an existential examination of life and experiencing things like depression and heartbreak and all these things.
Yeah, if Proust had done a comic strip, it would be Peanuts.
Yeah, the Snoopy was never anchored by any of the problems that Charlie Brown was. Snoopy was always off being a rock star or doing all things. So whenever you saw an animated special or even in the comic, I almost think Snoopy was the predecessor to Calvin and Hobbes because he was just off doing whatever the hell he wanted to. He even had his own damn sidekick, Woodstock. So,
by the way, I am so glad you didn't choose Woodstock. Okay. Any animal that speaks in just exclamation points. Ugh, no thank you. And then what does Snoopy had? His cousin, or what was the one that lived out in Needles?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the creepy one with the mustache.
Yeah.
I don't trust that guy.
They would bring them in. It was like the cousin Oliver of the Peanuts strips.
What I think is funny is that Peanuts was rife with sidekicks. I remember Peppermint Patty had Marcy in the proto-lesbian relationship that we would grow to respect and understand as we got older. But,
sure.
So I think it's just funny that maybe it's the longevity of that comic which lent itself to Charles Schulz wringing his hair and then adding these extra characters.
And can I interest you in some insurance? Or maybe a Dolly Madison snack, or maybe any of the other 50 things that they had Snoopy. That was another thing. That was like a character who just sold shit.
Sold stuff, yeah.
I mean, that was like I know it wasn't one of the first kids characters to do that because Howdy Doody was probably selling Marlboros or something. But as a kid, I just remember Snoopy being one of the only like kids characters who sold stuff.
Howdy Doody was selling cigarettes that accidentally lit himself on fire at the end of it.
The irony.
Smoked it down to the filter, and then kept going, and then he was on fire.
Howdy Doody behind the music.
Okay, Jeff, that's your first. Richard, what's your second?
All right, my second is Wilson, the volleyball from Castaway.
This is really good.
I can't think of a better performance from a piece of sporting equipment in a movie ever.
Do you remember when Wilson's evil cousin used to come over to the island with a mustache and oh no, wait, that was a
Spalding? Yeah, I remember him.
Voight.
Yeah, then the story behind Wilson is the screenwriter actually had himself marooned on a beach for a week to see if he could survive. Like, did one of those, like, Man versus Wild sort of, like, controlled. But...
Wait, marooned on a beach? Like, you mean like Temecula? Like where?
I don't know where. I don't have his travel itinerary.
He was at the Four Seasons in Hawaii.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you truly tell your assistant, maroon me? Okay, cancel my Friday and maroon me.
I mean, maroon me. I mean, don't maroon me, but... Maroon me.
Maroonish me.
Why is Adam Levine here?
No, that's a question everybody wants to know.
So this really happened?
Yeah, no, he stayed on this beach just to try to learn, like, okay, if you were stranded, what would be your things you'd need to do to survive?
Yeah.
And while he was there, a volleyball actually washed up on the beach.
That's wild.
And he sort of realized that it was the perfect way to kind of describe how just insanely lonely you would get. And also from a story standpoint, it was a way to kind of give Tom Hanks a reason to be talking to something.
Yeah,
Oh,
get the exposition out, talking to a beach ball. Or
Other than
volleyball.
just talking to himself, which
Yeah.
you probably would if you were stuck on a desert island for years. But it kind of gave this sort of structure to it, and then it winds up becoming this character.
Yeah.
I mean, spoiler alert: the scene where he loses Wilson when he's he's getting on the raft at the end. That's like, they treat it like a person is dying. It gets the whole swelling strings and no, come back type of thing.
Yeah, really heartbreaking.
Yeah, and you feel it, which is kind of incredible because it's a goddamn volleyball.
Yeah. You know what's funny is when actors talk about doing visual effects scenes where they have to interact with a tennis ball or something that will be the stand-in for the Hulk or Godzilla or something to be CG'd in later, I always wonder what's easier. Like if you asked Tom Hanks, who's easier to work with, Wilson, the volleyball, or Meg Ryan? Would you probably say, I'd rather work with a volleyball, honestly.
Depends which Meg Ryan.
That's true.
Later in life, Meg Ryan,
Later
or
in
like
life, Sleepless? Are we talking?
Sleepless Meg Ryan is probably there,
Like,
but
who's
you've
harder to
got
work
male
with?
Meg Ryan.
Denzel Washington or a volleyball.
Yeah, like I'd pick the volleyball over Hooch, from Turner and Hooch.
Right. And actually, they last year he was like a New York Rangers game, and they had him on screen doing like a wave, and then somebody threw him Wilson.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It was like the kiss cam thing, and he grabbed it and smiled and hugged it.
How does that even happen? They happen to have
I'm sure it was a shticky thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a planned thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So, can I do my next one?
Yeah, Jeff. As the judge, why don't we move you along to your next one? How about number 2, Jeff?
Uh-oh.
Before he jumps in here. This clown doesn't know what he's doing.
Sorry, I didn't mean.
Can't believe it.
You're not
No,
really
I don't.
offended.
I don't actually care.
Okay, so my second choice is Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I just watched this the other night.
Did you really?
Yeah, I could have watched something like new, but I was like, F that.
Okay,
Go
and-
watch a good movie.
And now I guess the question is, Groot speaks the same verse for the most of. Groot says the same thing. Groot is verbal, but what he says ultimately is nonsensical. So he might as well just be emoting some other way.
When you sent me the list of which characters you were going to choose, I for 1 second, for whatever reason, I was like, no, I'll allow it.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you got to talk us into it, but
Is this
I'm kind of on your
controversial?
side.
Well, ultimately, Groot
No,
says, I am Groot. Then later he says, we are Groot. So,
That's called character.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's called
Development.
That's his development. Yeah, he grew.
But
Literally.
He grew.
He grew. What I love about Groot is he is whoever he needs to be at the time, both from a physiological standpoint and from an emotional standpoint. He is sometimes like one of my favorite nonverbal, well, this is debatable, Chewbacca. I always think of Chewbacca, whether he's verbal or nonverbal, we don't really know what he's saying, and other characters will help us know. But what he always is the conscience of another character. So Groot makes commentary that the other characters respond to, which reveal their attitudes. So if somebody says, we're not going to help those people, Groot says, I am Groot. And then the person says, what we know Groot ultimately said was, we should help those people. Or
Right.
So he operates as this conscience. And he also operates as a murderous henchman.
Right.
So
A giant murderous tree.
yeah. And one thing that made me I have this really quickie analysis of why I love Guardians of the Galaxy so much, and I'll kind of make it quick. Because for me, when I was examining why I like Groot so much, I realized I liked him as much as I liked Andre the Giant in The Princess Bride. And that's when I realized Guardians of the Galaxy is The Princess Bride. Because there is this ragtag band of misfits. One character is a big guy like Groot, who is like the Andre the Giant character, who is hanging around with a little guy, and meaning Rocket. And although it was Wallace Shawn in that
Right.
movie. Then you have a character like Inigo Montoya and Drax both share a revenge vendetta, and they're out to get the person who killed their loved one. And that is their motive, and they have to be kind of convinced along with this mission to accomplish that motive. The lead character is a pirate who was kidnapped by pirates, ultimately. He's out for booty and loot and anything he can get.
And also booty. You
And
know
also
what I mean?
booty. So that's one reason that I love that film, and that's one reason that I love that character, because I felt like he was both henchman and conscience at the same time.
Have you guys seen the DVD extra outtakes with Vin Diesel recording the?
Oh,
God,
no.
no.
Oh, please do yourself a favor and watch this, because it's legitimately, he is sitting there, recording the I am Groots over and over,
Yeah.
and like having like discussions with the director about what the character is thinking at the time and how he should be saying I am Groot.
That's amazing.
It is really amazing. But again, if you think about it, he still has to emote and
Yeah.
act and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
He just has the same 3 words to do it.
Yeah.
So to be fair to Vin Diesel, that is honorable that he actually didn't just,
Yeah.
okay, take 3, I am Groot. Got that? Next one, I am Groot.
Yeah.
So he actually like recognized that part of it.
Learned his
The
subtext.
Yeah.
I wonder for the upcoming sequel if they're going to have a more of an expansive character where if, he's starting out as this little seedling baby Groot, as they've been calling him.
Yeah.
But like, in the pictures or in, still photos for the, he's there. I wonder if they are going to be able to, is he going to be learned more so than he was to be able to say more than I am Groot or we are Groot? Is he going to be an actual talking character? Well, do you think that will ruin it for you? If like this, now that he has this, kind of smallish family and can learn from a thing, and if he becomes an actual person, does that kind of like, I don't know.
I wonder if he'll even learn that. Why would he even learn? So somebody taught him I am Groot, and he was like, done. English, done. Got it. So I wonder if since he's been rebooted.
I mean, he's already learning to dance.
Yeah.
Maybe he'll learn from a British guy and they'll have Michael Caine voice him for the 3rd one.
Master Wayne.
All right, now we're at halftime, and now's the time that we'd like to remind everyone to check out our Twitter account at Mount Rushmore Pod, and follow us on Facebook as well, where we occasionally get into conversations with the 4 people that we know. We're also on Instagram, and we just kind of want to invite everyone to like us and rate and review us on iTunes. The iTunes kind of really helps us find a larger audience, and we're always trying to share more of our insights and wit and lack thereof with more people. So if you could write us a nice review.
Yeah, and share the love. If you like the show, tell somebody.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Your opinion kind of counts more than our requests. And we're back. Richard is now motioning to himself silently that he is going to have the 3rd pick, or he's asking for 3 hot dogs. I don't know. Which one is it, Richard?
I want a 30-second timeout.
That's right.
Real quick. So my 3rd one is Harpo Marx.
Oh, awesome. Wow. I thought that was the deep cut. I've got that one too.
Oh, you do?
Okay.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it was hard to read from Jeff because it was like, awesome, ...
Cool.
Oh, yeah, that one's mine. Richard, what do you like about Mr. Marx?
Well, I think he is the classic archetype for the comedic, mute character.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of the contrast to the hyperverbal Groucho Marx. So you need somebody who's there who can do the sight gags, do all the kind of prop work and stunt work, and kind of do all the physical comedy.
Yeah.
That's really what his wheelhouse was, along with playing harp.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because you need somebody to play harp.
You got to have every movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Abbott and Costello and Harpy?
Yeah.
Remember that?
I missed that one.
Yeah. Well, they lost Harpy like earlier on, and they just cut down Abbott.
Hey, Abbott, where's the harp? Yeah.
Hey, Mo. Hey, Harpster.
How many Marx? There's what, four Marx Brothers, right? Or 4 or 5?
There was 5 at
19.
At one point, yeah.
Yeah. There was a Gummo and a Zeppo, but they were rarely part of the film. The film.
They had they were all kind of chattermouths. Like they all kind of ran their mouths except for
Harpo.
And apparently Harpo got his kind of turned into a mute character when they cut his larynx. No, he turned into a mute character because he couldn't remember his lines.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, so they basically said, okay, you can't remember your lines, you're going to be a silent character. And that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
That's a great workaround.
Yeah, it really was. Pretty good. And he was also a harpist of interesting techniques. Apparently he taught himself how to play harp. It was like something he bought at like a 5 and dime store. and no one in his neighborhood knew how to play it or tune it.
Mm-hmm.
So he wound up tuning it in this really because he played piano. He wound up tuning it in this way that was completely different than how anyone else playing harp would.
Did not know that.
And it was also super tight, so if anyone else tried to play it, they'd probably like cut their fingers on the strings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's also was a croquet player in the U.S. Croquet Hall of Fame.
Did he learn to play croquet by himself with weird sized balls and a weird sized mallet?
Well, he would just like honk at it, and the balls would go flying. So
That's so cool. I chose Harpo. One, I'm fascinated with the Marx Brothers because as a kid, the films are always billed as a Marx Brothers movie, but they never played brothers. They often played people who are very much at odds with each other.
Sure.
Like four shysters who just kind of ran into each other, all trying to scam the same people. And one thing I loved about that was the chaos that Harpo was never used to advance the plot. He never could deliver exposition because you can't with a horn and a whistle. So
you can try.
You can try. Hey, somebody stole the horn from the whistle factory. So he often just came in and just screwed everything up for everybody and created incredible chaos.
Is he analogous to Curly in that way, that he's just an agent of chaos?
An agent of chaos. I think so. He never. Mo was the guy who got the job for him. Larry was just trying to do his best to do what Mo said, and then
Right.
Curly was the guy who stuck a
his tongue into like
tongue in a light socket,
Yeah.
and you screwed a light bulb into his ear, and it went on. So yeah, the reason I picked Harpo. He also elevated those films above vaudeville into sublime cinema at some point because they were all essentially a vaudeville by way of Broadway turned into a movie. But they still had plenty of sight gags and shtick, and they still had things like schoolroom scenes or that were aspects of vaudeville, or a scene where a guy is trying to get some money from a wealthy woman, which is something out of vaudeville, or a guy chasing a nurse around, which is all vaudeville.
Is there anything like that you think can happen today? Is there going to be a Twitter account that becomes a YouTube account that becomes a Netflix show that becomes a full live movie? I mean,
didn't they have that TV show,
like
Shit My Dad Says?
Your dog with a blog.
I guess so.
Yeah.
What a strange evolution of just like media from stage to
whatever.
Yeah. Well, there's that movie Ringtone.
I'm waiting for Emoji the movie.
Emoji the movie.
It'll be really good.
I'm sure it's coming.
I mean, if you can make Battleship into a movie, what can't you make?
Okay. Anything else or?
No, just if you ever want to hear a musician espouse the virtues of Harpo, Jonathan Richman has a fun song called "When Harpo Played His Harp," and it touches a lot of the reasons why I love the Marx Brothers and why I love Harpo.
Well, Jeff, why don't we move on to your fourth?
Okay.
And what choice would that be?
Okay. So I suspected other people might choose this, but I wanted to choose it anyway because I love this character, have since I was a kid, and that's R2-D2 from Star Wars.
Famous
Yeah,
robot.
definitely thought about it.
Do you agree with me that he's vocal, but I don't know if he's verbal?
I mean, we talked about it earlier with Chewbacca. I would say he's more of a nonverbal sidekick than Chewbacca was.
He has somebody who can translate for him, although I'm never quite sure if C-3PO really is accurately translating.
I think what's interesting about R2, and I'll jump in here, is that you can get what he's kind of saying by the way that Ben Burt kind of edited the way his sounds.
There are inflections. And,
you could tell that when he was sad or wistful or like frightened, or maybe it was his arms flailing about or his head exploding or whatever. He's in danger there.
I would also say, in as much as I respect all the actors from Star Wars careers, Star Wars wasn't their best performance. So if you want to say R2-D2 is emoting, I would say Ben Burt did a better performance than Harrison Ford in that movie because he's playing a space cowboy character who's kind of channeling John Wayne, and it's pretty wooden, and R2 is so expressive. Also, what I love about R2 is he's in terms of a sidekick, he's doing a shitty job because he ultimately is a sidekick for a character that we don't even know that truly exists when we first meet him in Star Wars, because he's ultimately kind of Anakin Skywalker's sidekick. we think he's C-3PO's sidekick, and he abandons him multiple times.
Yeah, he's a man on his own mission, literally on a very specific mission. And 3PO is just, he's so annoyed with him off the bat.
Yeah.
And he's a good archetype because it's the archetype of the silent character who's the sidekick, who's actually right all the time.
Yeah.
But the person who's talking never believes him
Mm-hmm.
and always tries to insist that they're right and then won't give him credit whenever he's actually right.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, and God bless little Kenny Baker for being crammed in that. And, you know, when he was slowly throughout the years, his role was, pardon the pun, was like downsized.
Right. Yeah.
Where eventually he was just like, okay, well, we're going to put you in here for 2 seconds to turn the head a little bit, but we don't need you in there to roll along. But like for someone that was like for so many years, I mean, almost solely identified as R2-D2, you know, with a brief stint in Time Bandits.
You know, I love Time Bandits, one of my favorite films, and I did look up Kenny Baker. I had met Kenny Baker briefly at a Star Wars con, and if saying Kenny Baker is meeting Kenny Baker and having him turn and kind of wave his sausage finger hand at you. But one thing I did was like look up his IMDb, and because at the same con I met Anthony Daniels, and between Kenny Baker and Anthony Daniels, they both, you know, Anthony Daniels imagined himself to be this wonderful thespian.
Oh, you know that Anthony Daniels hates Kenny Baker, right?
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
There was no love lost between those two. Yeah.
Who would you take in a fight? If they had slugged it out, do you think?
I'd go Kenny Baker. He fights dirty.
I think there'd be some nut shots.
Like a lot of little people, they who become actors, they didn't get all the best parts. And so, like, I remember looking at Kenny Baker's IMDb, and it's like Flesh Gordon and like the erotic adventures of Hercules and kind of like these Troy McClure type roles. So God love him for just being in kind of the working man type of performer.
I think the only unfortunate thing about like R2 and 3PO was that George Lucas kind of envisioned them as like this through line throughout the first 3 movies, like as like, oh, this is the audience's perspective.
Like the Greek chorus.
Yeah, and then carried it over until the prequels and just totally failed.
Oh,
like they were in such like miscast and kind of useless and stupid positions that it was always like, oh, why'd you do that to the like you didn't really have many people from the original trilogy in the prequels, but the ones that you decided to bring over, like you turned 3PO into Anakin's droid and has his coverings all off.
Yeah,
and like,
I mean,
that makes no sense to do that.
I've only seen the first prequel, but I remember how excited everyone got when they saw C-3PO, right? You know, the first time.
Yeah,
it was like, oh my god! Rah!
And then
they just wasted him.
So yeah, R2-D2. Love him, and I realized I picked my car based on his color. I got a blue and white car, and I didn't realize that.
You're the best. Richard, is your car based on your fourth pick?
I hope not, because my fourth pick is Beaker
Oh, shit.
from the Muppet Show.
I love Beaker. Oh, man.
So in the first season, when they would of the Muppet Show, when they would do the honeydew,
Is Beaker a Muppet? I'm not.
Yes. In the first season of the Muppet Show, they would do the Muppet Lab segment, and it would just be Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. Then second season, they realized they kind of needed somebody for him to play off of.
Oh, he wasn't there in the first.
Was not there in the first season. No, only in the second season they bring him in, and puppeted by Richard Hunt, one of the main Muppet puppeteers, and he is just there to get shit on, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, he is made perfectly to be the guy who get giant hair, easy set on fire, eyes bulge out already, so he already looks like he's about to freak out. He's got this downturned mouth, so whenever he starts going,
By the way, out of all of the impressions that you've done on this podcast, your Beaker is by far the best one.
I've been working on it for a couple of weeks. I
It's
wanted
really
to make
good.
sure we got it. So
It's sharp.
yeah, it's on point.
Well, BeakerCon is coming up.
Right.
Maybe he'll get that guy with a hand to wave at you with his sausage fingers.
I understand the guy who does Bunsen Honeydew now and the guy who does Beaker hate each other. I just
love the rumors that we spread here on this podcast. Nerd rumors.
Nerd rumors, yeah. That's our spin-off podcast, Nerd Rumors. But I just love, I mean, he's such a great comedic character. And every once in a while they'll do something weird with him, like have him do a singing segment. Like in the first new Muppets movie, they had him at the telethon sing Smells Like Teen Spirit. But of course, instead of singing, it's all me, 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 all that kind of stuff. And it's just so like, it's great because you could tell that it was like a purpose designed character. And so everything about him is, like I said, designed to like catch on fire or have something awful happen to him.
I just realized how much he actually looks like a beaker right now. Yeah. Like, I know his namesake he's been a scientist with Dr. Bunsen.
Right. I'm sure he was designed with that, or named with that in mind, I'm sure.
I didn't put two and two together until like I'm just visually putting him in my head right now, thinking like, he does kind of look like a beaker.
And that's, I guess, the thing for me with him is that another archetype, which is the character that suffers in silence.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes, the characters want to emote sadness or confusion or dislike. He is the embodiment of a character that has to silently embody fear and, sadness and pain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's fun.
Yeah. What a great pick.
In a world where, this was prior to, I think, PETA and greater awareness regarding lab rats and animals and animal testing.
Right.
He's the human guinea pig for Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. And I love named after the shape of his head, Honeydew Melon.
Right.
That's a great choice.
All right. Well, now it's my turn in the show to name my choice. And I've decided to go with a Disney character, Apu the monkey from the movie Aladdin.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I chose this because he makes little monkey chittering sounds to kind of convey his annoyance or happiness. But I think the Disney animators are so good at conveying body language and movement. And it almost, I could have almost picked any Disney character because those guys and gals, like, they study so much. They study not only like animal movement, but there's so much that goes into looking at themselves in mirrors and just looking at different, and the ability to transform that into everything seems to, you have to be able to tell the story without language, without music even at times. And I think that Disney does that better than just about any other. And definitely like Apu, this little monkey who, is Aladdin's sidekick, I think really does that very well.
Yeah, it's a fun, I've only seen Aladdin once. I feel like I need to have my Disney employee card revoked if I reveal that. I do remember that character being very much kind of suffering alongside Aladdin and then supporting Aladdin and having obviously some kind of simian characteristics, but very human, like every animal sidekick is in Disney.
Yeah, and he's got like a little jacket too. He's got that little hat.
Oh, couture is a category that we can discuss.
And then who grinds the organ? Is that him?
All right. Now, let me recap quickly our four choices by each of our contestants. Richards chose Gromit from Wallace and Gromit. Harpo Marx from The Brothers Marx. Wilson, the volleyball from Castaway. And Beaker from The Muppets / The Muppet Show / every Muppet movie. Jeff's also chose Harpo Marx from the Marx Brothers. Groot, the tree creature from Guardians of the Galaxy. R2-D2. R2-D2.
R2.
That impression's pretty good too. R2 from the Star Warses.
If we ever do the suggested Mount Rushmore of fictitious valets and butlers, that's what I want to see. 3PO.
And Richard's final choice was, Jeff's final choice was Snoopy from Snoopy, not from anything else.
Snoopy
from the Snoopy ice cream machine. And this acting as judge is harder than you think, and I don't have like a really good sense of. I can't tie it up the way that you do, Jeff. Like usually you have
Nobody can.
So
nobody chooses to.
And although part of me would love to spite Richard and choose you, Jeff. As soon as Richard said Wilson, the volleyball, I realized that he was thinking on a different level.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have chosen something as unique and out of the box and something that I really love with my choices on the show. I think I saw it in Richard's choice. So congratulations, Richard Manfredi,
Awesome.
winner of this week's episode. So I'd just like to thank everyone for listening in and invite you to check us out on iTunes and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And, if there's any of those kids that know of like the secret programs and the secret like social networks that are out there that us adults don't know about yet. And if you could just let us know, like DM us or whatever, so we could get there first before these other stupid podcasts get out there. Or if you know what's the next thing after podcasts, we want to be there too. If we can get on lasers,
Like a virtual podcast, like the virtual reality podcasting.
if it's just like us coming over to your house and yelling, like through the mail slot, we'll do that too.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Well, this has been Michael with the Mount Rushmore podcast.
And I'm Richard.
I'm Jeff.
Today's Thanksgiving. No, it isn't. Fuck.
Let's pretend it's Thanksgiving.
You're doing what I do. It's just like my mind feels really hot right now. I'm sweating. I know my mouth is talking.